Yo, what's up, dudes? Welcome back to a new video. In today's video, as you can see by the title or the cover or whatever the hell I put on this video, we're going to be mixing with the new SSL channel strip that they came out with, which is the 4K G. I made a video on this last week, I think, just kind of comparing all the versions that I personally own as far as like SSL channel strips. But I thought it would be cool to just go ahead and mix this little beat that I got with the channel strip. And I think what I'm going to do differently is I'm going to make use of the preamps, and then I'm also going to make use of the fader as well. So I'm going to be mixing with the faders built into the channel strip instead of using Pro Tools. Apparently they modeled the fader. I think when companies model the fader, it's super subtle in my opinion. I know that UAD did do that specifically with their API channel when they redid it like 5 years ago. So I'm curious on how much this is going to add to it. I'm sure they're doing something. I'm sure they did model it, but I think it's such a subtle thing when it comes to channel strips specifically, like plugins. I just think it's like a little too subtle in my opinion. So I don't know. We're gonna try it. I was like, why not? If they truly modeled the fader and that's part of the analog character that could be added to your signal, why not just go ahead and mix with the channel strip itself? Anyways, I think that'll be cool. I haven't seen any other people utilizing or using it that way, or really mixing with the faders on the channel strip itself. So I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be interesting. Let's see how much different it is, if there is any sort of, I don't know, analog juice that I feel that is being added by using the fader or mixing this way. And then just to show you what I did, just to make things a little bit easier, I just went ahead and I grouped my beat, so you can see down here. So basically all the tracks are in a group, and then that allows me to kind of control everything at once. But for the purpose of this, because these are all different elements, obviously we won't be utilizing the group function, but just throw that out there. If you are working, let's say you're working on a pair of overheads or something where both signals are similar and need to work together, this could be a cool way. If you don't work with groups all the time, you can group those tracks together and then basically be mixing, I don't know, 2 things at once, 3 things at once, or whatever. If you know that you need to apply roughly the same amount of EQ, compression, saturation, whatever the case is, it's a good way to work. So just want to throw that out there. But what I am going to use real quick before I start mixing is that I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the pre. So basically now this means that all the pre's are on every single one, as you can see, because I'm still working in this grouped mode. I'm going to go ahead and let's just do 25 dB of gain. I feel like usually when, or actually let's do 15. That might be a little too hot. Let's do 15. All the pre's are on across the channel strips. As you can see, we're adding 15 dB of gain. Let's work with a little bit of saturation. Let's get as much analog juice out of these channel strips as we can. If it's there, let's go ahead and use it. Another thing, I don't usually personally work in this mode, especially when I'm working with the SSL stuff, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the HQ. And then the last thing I just want to throw out there is that I'm using the bus comp as my bus compressor. Figured we'll just keep it SSL. Let's basically make it seem like we're working on a SSL console. So that's set to default. No settings have been changed yet. And then I'm using the SSL meter. Let's give ourselves some meters. Let's treat this like a real console. We'll just keep it at 18 dB, whatever. We won't run too hot today. Let's dive in. I'm gonna just get some levels real quick, and then we'll go ahead and talk about what I did and stuff. Put on some good headphones, speakers, make a cup of coffee, whatever you need to do, and let's start mixing this. All right, so we got a little balance going, you know what I'm saying? I tried my best to keep up the meter window and the bus compressor just so you can visually see what's going on as I'm bringing stuff up. The next thing that I do want to do is I'm curious on how much work the preamp is putting in or how much saturation, texture, or whatever you want to call it, depth maybe. Curious on how much that's having an effect on the mix so far. And like I said, we haven't added any EQ compressors, obviously, as you can see, just getting some basic levels going. I will say, if if you're watching and have been paying attention, I've been trying to utilize this width knob. This is unique to the solid state stuff as far as like their channel strips go. If you have the mono signal, it won't be an option, but if you have a stereo signal, you get this width knob. I don't like it, but I don't hate it either. It's going to depend on the actual sample itself, the signal, the instrument, whatever the case is. I don't know. It doesn't really. I am not like, and I say this because I know this probably isn't something they're too focused on, but I will say like it's not the best stereo width plugin. I would say if you're gonna want to add some stereo width to something or kind of spread something out, I'd probably recommend using a different plugin. But anyways, I'm gonna turn my groups back on. And let's go ahead and just play it. And I'm going to turn off the preamp on the channel strips. Like I said, because I grouped all these tracks, I can just hit one preamp and it's going to shut them off on every single instance of the plugin. So let's see. I don't know. I'm curious on how much of a difference. Like I said, we're only at 15 dB. Obviously, if we were to add a little bit more, it would be way more drastic. But I feel like this is plenty to kind of understand what's going on there and how much the preamp is adding to the mix so far. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So as we can hear, it's not doing a whole lot. So I'm not going to stop there. I'm not going to say, oh, it's not doing anything. I just think that we need to crank the preamp a little bit more. Now that we have our levels and stuff, we can start messing with the preamp, add a little bit more saturation, distortion, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, let's see how much we're utilizing with this preamp. We're going to know how hard we're hitting it or if we're even hitting it at all by this light right here. You'll see it flicker because we can't really base it off the light. We also have to use our ears to see or to listen and hear how much of a difference it's adding basically. So let me go ahead and mute up and let's see the damage that we're doing. All right, so yeah, it's definitely subtle. It's not the most obvious. It is doing something. It is super subtle. I think in that case, let's go ahead and crank the preamp a little bit more. You can see that obviously we are hitting the preamp as far as this track goes. So track number 1, which would be the percussion loop. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different. Once we start cranking this preamp, we might even hear the bass distort a little bit just because obviously that's a more heavier signal in its bass in general. So it's definitely going to react to that preamp a little bit more. Let's kind of push it and then we'll bring it back down just enough where we're in the sweet spot and we feel like, okay, we are utilizing this preamp enough and we're doing what we need with it and we're getting what we need out of it. So let's go ahead and play the track. So as you can hear, we definitely need to crank it just a little bit more, not that much more. Like it looks like almost 4.5 dB, 5. Let's call it 5 dB. 4.5, whatever. And you can hear that as we were pushing it, it was definitely distorting. As I predicted, the bass is definitely going to distort a little bit quicker than the rest of the tracks. But also another thing we can utilize is the trim. We can also, trim on how much we're feeding into the channel strip itself, which would also include us needing to adjust the mic level because we are feeding the channel strip more signal. So yeah, definitely a little bit of difference there. I mean, not only are we just obviously gaining into the preamp a little bit more working this way, and like I said, this is gonna be the input trim, so we're also gaining into the actual plugin, or in this case, the channel strip console itself. So we're also utilizing the input stage of the actual channel strip, and we're also getting a little bit of character, a little bit of saturation out of the channel strip itself, including with the mic pre. And obviously now we can bring our mic pre down. So it's kind of like this way of working, like, okay, do I just want to work a little bit hotter? But I think it's time to just start EQing and compressing and whatever we need to do to kind of get these elements to work better together. I like to personally work when it comes to channel strips. I like to do filters first, then I like to EQ, and then I like to do dynamics. Let me go ahead and mute up, and I'm just going to start mixing, and then I'll go through and talk about it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the verses. We'll talk about what all the EQ moves I did, but I also have other elements in the track that I haven't brought up yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix those in, and then we'll talk about the track overall. So just wanted to chime in to say that. All right, so little mix going on. You know what I'm saying? Nothing too crazy. Utilizing a lot of that impedance switch, which I'll talk about. For the most part, I mean, I don't really need to explain too much, especially if you're following along. The one thing I will say is, if you haven't noticed, is that I tried my best to utilize just using the actual solo button and cut button built into the channel strip. instead of using the actual Pro Tools solo and mute. Whatever, just to make it a little bit more authentic. But it is nice that it's there because you don't have, I mean, you just whatever, save a half a second unless you have like a controller or something, but you can just solo or mute right here, which is nice. But definitely liking this impedance knob. It's pretty cool. I mean, I'm just using it, if you haven't noticed already, mostly just be using it to roll off some of that top end instead of using the filter. I did test it at some point. If you rewind a little bit at the beginning, I was comparing it to the filter to see how much difference it is, or if it sounds more musical. I don't know, sounds a little bit more different. It pretty much it does the same thing essentially. I just think that the impedance sounds a little bit more lo-fi just because we are messing with the impedance or whatever. But it is a cool way to filter stuff out if you don't need any of the top end on stuff, which I think was the vibe that I'm going for this, because there is a lot of like sparkly textures going on in this beat. A lot of it can be clashing or whatever. And also just assuming that like, oh, I don't know, somebody ends up writing to it or whatever, I just know that I need to make space for the vocals and shit like that. So just trying to roll off as much top end as I can in a tasteful way, and not doing it just to do it or whatever. The main thing I will say about the whole mixing process of this so far, and just in general, and the way that I've been working, and why I do like the dynamic section on SSL channel strips in general. I just like the way that the makeup gain works. Some people hate it, some people love it. There is an option to turn it off right here. So if you open this little window right here, it opens up and you can see the analog VC that we were talking about beginning of the video. I guess you have an option to turn it off and on. I would just leave it on. I mean, that's the whole point of getting the analog sound in your computer, right? So might as well leave it on. But you can see that you can turn on the auto gain, or you can set the offset. I like the way it sounds. It clamps onto the signal if you need it to. It doesn't ever sound too over compressed, assuming that you're not doing it on purpose. But just, you know, kind of slamming the compressor, it still sounds pretty damn good. And in general, I just find that mixing stuff, or compressing individual elements in your mix if it's needed, I don't know, it just sounds like a little bit more better instead of just trying to rely on group compression or just not compressing at all. In my opinion, it just sounds a little bit more like a record, and you know, depending on the genre. But and it also just helps with like really molding the mix together where you don't need to rely on your bus compressor too much. And as you can see throughout the video, or throughout this video, I've been adjusting my I even like resetted my threshold a little bit in my makeup just to make sure that like, okay, this is what I want and this is the feeling that I'm going for. You know, just adjusting to that as I mix too, which is kind of nice that this is up. So otherwise, yeah, I would say, I mean, pretty straightforward. Like I said, I was utilizing the compressor a lot on this stuff, and a little bit of the filters, definitely the impedance, but not like a whole lot of EQ going on. The biggest thing I would say was definitely like the kick and bass, trying to get those two to match together. For what it is, I mean, they're working together, and then just adding like, I personally like to add a lot of 40 hertz to my bass and stuff. So the only thing I did that was like unique to this 4K is I used the ×3 button. I can't remember exactly how it works, to be honest with you, but there is I think obviously literally it times it by 3, but as far as like the actual detailed processing that's done, I can't remember correctly off the top of my head what it does. But I did like it for the little tom loops. I mean, honestly, the only last thing I would do, because I am hitting my meters a little bit hard, I'd probably just like put this back in group mode, take this off. There we go. Okay, just want to make, there's probably something in solo. There we go. Usually, which is it's the little details, because when something is soloed and you can't see the cut button is red, that means that there is something soloed in the console. Like on the real console, that's what it would do. So little details that they got right, which is kind of nice. The last thing I would probably do, let me put this back in group mode, and I would just like slowly bring everything down. I think instead of using the fader, I'm just going to use the clean output trim just to kind of utilize that. And you know, I talked about it in the video, so why not use it? So I'm just going to slowly bring down the output trim until we're just like until we give ourselves enough headroom. And I'm going to utilize the meters. So let's use the meters. There we go. Let's do 6.9, 69. You know, that's a very drastic amount of trim that we're adding or decreasing our mix by. But we got to remember we're also working at -18, so we're not pushing as hot. And also I was just making sure that my actual master meter had some headroom. Anyways, hopefully you got something from this video. Definitely one of my longer videos that I've done in a long time. And yeah, I appreciate you if you made it this far. Don't forget to use my links down below. Safari pedals, we got Sonar Works. I got a few more that I'm going to add. I got my Z sounds. All that stuff is going to be down there. So make sure you use those if you want to buy any plugins or anything from those companies. It would help me out a lot. Otherwise, I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe, comment if there's anything that you would like to see. If there's anything that you have questions about that I didn't talk about in my video that I just overlooked because I'm just free balling right now. Yeah, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.